serious people who have found a secret room or space in their house. How long did you live in the house before you found it, and what was in it? What was the eventual outcome of finding the room? A couple of years ago I rented an apartment that was in a massive old architecture style building. No idea how old it was. I remember when I did the showing they showed me a door that had an elaborate staircase that went straight up to the ceiling and explained that it went to the attic, which was sealed up. When I was finally moving out, curiosity got the best of me and I pushed on the panel at the top of the stairs until it popped open and hoisted myself up there. It was completely dark and the floor was covered in at least an inch of dust, and I found that it was an entire extra floor to my unit. There was some old rotting furniture and magazines littered throughout the rooms. I eventually found a small hole in one of the walls that went into the sealed off upstairs of the unit next to mine and decided to go through that one too. I found a smaller hole at the back end of that area that led to the next one. I eventually made my way through about 5 or 6 of these sealed off spaces that had no entrances save these small holes in drywall. The farther I went in, the older the furniture I found. Fridges from the 50s or earlier, old dishware, and so much dust over everything. The last unit was the most interesting. Hand-painted scenes on the walls and holes to the attic letting sunlight stream in. I took small videos, but they are all on Snapchat, so they are hard to post. I must have been up there for hours just exploring alone in the dark. I was pretty lucky to have the only room with access up there. Edit, album, https://unga.com/a/skype. Sorry for the format/captions, no idea why I decided video was the way to go. Back in college some friends and I rented an old mansion that had been built in the early 1920s from an elderly lady. The place was falling apart, but it was huge and rent was dirt cheap. About 2 years into living there I went to the basement to do some laundry and momentarily lost my balance, reaching out to steady myself using one of the wall panels. It flexed more than I expected, and after some inspection I found that it was removable. Behind it was a small, mostly empty, very dirty concrete room about 100 square feet. I say mostly empty because right in the middle there was a hole the size of a well that had been previously bricked up. It must have been old because the bricks had eroded at some point and exposed some of the hole, maybe a 2-foot diameter circle out of the full 5 feet. After calling my friends down to look at it, I got the courage to creep a little closer and peer down into it. There was another room roughly the same size but deep, maybe 15 feet down, and mostly dirt. We shined a flashlight down into it, and I could swear there was a teddy bear at the bottom. Unfortunately, despite plenty bargaining, none of us were ever able to work up the courage, liquid or regular, to tear open climb down for a closer look. Especially after we noticed that the bricks which I thought had fallen in were all accounted for, scattered around the hole, as if something had broken out. At the risk of my account being discovered by my Redditor friends, this was in Pittsburgh. We did a little research and think the sub-basement may have been related to Prohibition, but honestly I'm just willing to accept that explanation in order to avoid lifelong nightmares. Watched Home Alone and saw that attic that Macaulay Culkin was staying in and wondered if we had one in our townhouse. Ran around with a stepladder until I found it in my mum's closet. Got on my tiptoes on the stepladder and fought the door open, ended up being a big piece of plywood, and peered into the attic. A mouse colony stared back. It was like that scene in Ratatouille. Decades worth of feces covered the whole space. My mom was not happy once I told her. We moved shortly after. When clearing out my grandma's house I found a small door in the wall of the basement that led to a tiny room. According to my mother, that's where they hid the family heirlooms when thieving relatives came to town. I was mostly interested in the fact that it was covered in scribbles from my mom and her sisters growing up. Helping my granddad move house, we accidentally found access to the underfloor area, not even big enough to really call a crawl space I don't think. Spotty memory. There was a small pile of trash from the 60s/70s, juice cans, chocolate bar wrappers and crumpled newspapers, and bits of discarded construction debris and some broken tools. We think it must have been used by the builders in lieu of a trash can. It was cool, an accidental time capsule. There was a hidden door behind the wallpaper. Obviously the door knob was taken off, so it blends in with the wall, in the hallway. We lived in this house for 6 years, and I found out about this door 2 years ago. When we opened it, we saw a skeleton in the corner. Not gonna lie, that scared me shitless, although it was just a prop left by the past owners of our house. There was a small door under some stairs, almost like Harry Potter's room, in my old apartment in Venezuela. We'd lived there for a year, until I leaned on it, and felt it wiggle a little, and realized it was a small square door. I was too scared to open it, so had my dad do it, and about 20 or so cockroaches flooded out. Never have I felt so much panic. Removed. Not 100% of the answer you expect, but still kinda relevant. My grandpa bought our house back in 1960. It was once owned by Jewish people. We live in a small village in Germany, but the Jewish people got kicked out. Best case scenario, when Hitler did his things, my grandpa renovated the upper part of the house, the roof, you know, the usual things you do with a house that's around 400 years old. He didn't renovate the rooms in the lower floor though, as they were good as is. Many years later, long after he died, around 2010, my sister noticed a broken floorboard in the smaller of the 2 attics we have. It's between the lower and upper floor, and wasn't part of the renovation. She got a flashlight and a mirror and checked, because we are just curious little fucks, and love to hunt for treasure. We knew that Jewish people owned it, and we knew the history of them hiding their belongings, because the Nazis forced them out. So yeah, we found a ton of cutlery, that weird shit. Pointy spoons, weird looking teaspoons, sugar cube grabby grabbers, IDK what they're called / edit, yes, tongs, I get it, thanks, plates, lots of it. It's all pure silver, and just looks amazing in a weird way. It's nothing special just by looking at it, as they're rather common, but it was still a creepy yet amazing find. Just realizing that some people use those things, and had to hide it from the Nazis right at that spot. It's about the story that emerges in your mind, because this is exactly what happened, sadly. We kept all of it, since then, in a showcase, and if someone wants to see pictures I'll happily post them later on. Edit, as there's huge demand, I'll be able to post pics in around 7 hours, as I'm not home currently. Edit 2, and I shall deliver, https://unga.com/a/urg0, 2 bonus pics of my grandpa's dad. Please don't judge him, I know what you guys gonna think, and some old family members. If you guys want to have a detailed picture of something, please just ask and I'll deliver. Not necessarily secret, but my old house was a duplex. There was a hobbit-sized door on the bottom floor and I glanced in there a few times, but only saw pipes and different electrical units and stuff. There was some of the landlord / maybe past residents' junk in the corner. After a few years I explored behind it, and realized it leads to the other half of the house. It was about a year into owning our house. We actually found 2 secret rooms. One was just a room under the stairs that was closed off. Had some toys from the 70s in it. The really crazy one was when we redid the insulation in our attic. One of the workers asked if I knew there was a room up there. I had no idea. So we cut open the drywall and there were stacks on stacks of boxes from the 60s. Like a ton of boxes. And they were all full. So I opened them up expecting some cool stuff. And they were full of freaking pine cones. One of the bigger bummers of my life. I found a secret space in my closet when my mom and I were moving out of the house she was renting to move into my stepdad's house. I never noticed it, because junk covered the section of the wall that was covering a small entrance to a room that was sealed off with boards and plywood. I couldn't pry it open, but I could see light shining in it, and a single mason jar filled with what I assumed was water. The air was cold in there, like, as if the central heating didn't even reach that part. I showed it to my mom, and she told me that she doesn't remember seeing that there when we had moved in 8 years prior, but since we were moving out, it didn't matter. The room gave me the creeps for whatever reason. I know why it was sealed off, or why there was a single mason jar filled with water in the center of the room. While installing Cat 5e network cables many years ago in my house, I discovered a short and squat, cast iron water heater inside some walls, around a staircase and bathroom, connecting the basement and the next level of the house. I'm guessing whoever did the remodel didn't think the little bit of space that could be reclaimed was worth it. I found it when I realized my measurements weren't making sense and couldn't figure out why I wasn't seeing my Ethernet cable. I had to plot everything out carefully because of the split level nature of my house, the crawl space, the basement, etc., and figured out there was 3 feet of space unaccounted for. It will probably be removed when we remodel the basement bathroom. I figure I can either get more storage space or a full bathtub instead of just the shower stall that is there now. Moved into an 18th century farmhouse as a little kid and found a small panel door in the back of the large closet in my small room. Turned out to be a small finished room over the eaves that had a small portal window. I spent hours in that room reading and hiding from the world. Found it moving in. Latch at bottom of corner of closet. Cape Cod style house, crawl space to basically uncarpeted room with 2 windows over garage. Fell through one time. Hidden closet in basement wall after 20 years of living in the house. We found some personal documents of no real interest, a newspaper from the day after Pearl Harbor, and a hand-drawn cartoon of a pregnant Lucy yelling "God damn it Charlie Brown."